Welcome to the Live Up Podcast, where we revisit the movies from our youth to see if they live up. Quick note on how this episode will go. We will review, discuss, and score the movie in question to see if it lives up now to us as adults and if it lives up to kids today. I'm Jess Latterman.
And I'm Amanda Treat. We've heard from our podcast listeners that 1989 was officially the start of Kevin Costner's hotness phase. So let's go all the way back to that hot dad summer. It's 1989's Field of Dreams. Jess, you requested this film. What is your history with Field of Dreams?
Yeah, so this was in the rotation, not super heavily, but I'd say it was in the baseball rotation. So I don't think I saw it in the theater, but I saw it was in the mix with like The Natural, Bull Durham, League of Their Own, Major League. I picked this movie because in our house we rotate who picks our Friday night family movie night, and it was my turn. And even though we had things to watch for our podcast, I was just really in the mood to see it. I was really genuinely curious to see whether this lives up. So I did watch this with the whole family. Elena had actually seen this one. I was a little bit worried because we have had one Kevin Costner movie before, and I was worried, and it was a little, like Prince of Thieves for me was a little bit of a bust, so I was a little worried about, Kevin Costner in this one with his American accent from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, whether...
Imagine if he'd had a British accent randomly in this movie.
That would be so funny. Yeah, in Iowa.
Oh, he had that in him the whole
time, and he did not do it for Prince of Thieves. So I was a little bit worried, but it's summertime. I'm in the mood to see this. But what about you?
We did not watch this a ton as a kid. You probably watched it a lot more than I did, but we definitely rented it from Blockbuster at some point.
I feel like I generally watched more TV and movies than you as a kid.
We watched different movies. That's what's coming out so clearly. Yeah. Like I can do verbatim these like stupid Christmas movies.
Oh my god!
So we were dependent on Blockbuster for our Field of Dreams. I don't think I've seen this in like 30 years. My memory of it was fuzzy enough that the first thing I wrote in my episode notes as the credits were rolling in was, please don't be bad. Please don't be 3 hours long.
Oh my God.
My other thought.
That was my first thought too, because of the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and because I was like, oh, I'm really excited to watch this. And, sometimes my kids are like, oh,
just kept going.
Right. And so this one, I was nervous for those same reasons. We'll see, listeners, whether that was the case.
One thing that jumped out at me in the opening credits was, so you've got James Horner doing the music, doing the whole soundtrack for this, and it's so solemn. And the previous movie we reviewed that he did the soundtrack was American Tail, which is not solemn. It's like silly and goofy and just idiotic. Yeah. But this one is so serious, and it is the complete opposite of the vibe you get from the movie poster, where you have Kevin Costner standing in front of like a cartoon moonrise. I'm not sure what's going on there, and little like cartoon corn, and it just looks like you're about to watch a really dumb rom-com. So the music made me worried that this was going to be taking itself way, way more seriously than I remembered.
It's funny that you noticed the music right away, perhaps because I've seen this more. In my notes, the first thing that I wrote down was like, oh, the music. Because as soon as that solemn music comes on, and listeners, you could be listening to it right now, maybe with my audio wizardry, and you can judge for yourself. But it gives, I don't know, it's sort of chills inducing a little bit. I have like a little bit of response.
I'm not saying it's bad, but... You pick up the DVD, because I got the DVD from the library again.
You
Thank you, Boston Public Library.
I love it.
My librarian, by the way, just thinks I'm ridiculous at this point.
This podcast is essentially a promotional PSA for your public library.
Boston Public Library has all the DVDs from the 80s.
I'm so lazy. I just stream it all.
Yeah, so I was not expecting James Horner. He's done epic movies. He did Titanic.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Long and serious movies. I was worried about the tone.
Yeah, the serious tone, I actually immediately liked. Movies I've watched a lot as a kid, sometimes as soon as, whether it's the music or the first dialogue, my memory all of a sudden opens up some dusty box somewhere in my shitty middle-aged brain, and it just unfolds the whole movie for me, and I remember it, and then I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad or good. And so for this one in particular, I thought, oh, okay, I think this is going to be a good one.
So, Jess, for people like me who haven't seen this movie in 30 years, would you like to give a plot summary of Field of Dreams?
I will. And just like our music discussion, I am going to give a serious and a not serious description. On the one hand, this is essential viewing for anyone who loves America and her pastime. On the other hand, it's about a man with a mortgage who destroys his only means to make money in pursuit of satisfying the voice in his head. And as we all know, or maybe Amanda didn't know, the voice famously says, if you build it, he will come. And that results in a baseball field full of ghosts in the middle of Iowa. And I have to note that when the movie was all over, my daughter looked at me and she said, quote, this is a direct quote, no sane person would actually do that.
Thank you, Lily.
I know.
They jump so quickly into building this baseball field when he hears the voice in the first minute. They jumped right into the building the baseball field.
Yeah.
I needed a montage of him getting a CAT scan. I needed the doctor's assessment. Like, we're not seeing anything on your, the results here. And, like, I need his wife pushing back a little bit. Like, please don't take our life savings and blow it on this baseball field.
Yeah.
So many thoughts. So yeah, Lily, good catch. She's on her way to something solid there.
I mean, my kid's commentary was a little bit on the practical side because she was just like, no one would do that, right? I mean, that's insane.
I'm with Lily. I wrote in my notes that I would not be able to see the baseball players because I just am not buying this.
Yeah.
Like, you heard a voice in your head and you built a baseball field for no effing reason without a doctor's pass on. Yeah, you're fine. Honey, nope.
And I should note for listeners new to us, my daughter is 12. So this isn't like some 6-year-old.
Although a 6-year-old might have thought of that too. Like,
right. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Well, here's the funny thing. So my son, just to jump to what he thought, about a minute into the movie, as soon as he hears the voice, if you build it, he will come, immediately my son, who's 7, said, oh, well, I guess that means if he builds a baseball field, his dad could come back. Oh my God.
Boom.
Boom.
Done.
Boom.
Yeah.
He called the whole movie. We were only 5 minutes in.
It starts as like a Ken Burns documentary on this family's life, but also a little bit of a baseball tribute. Mm-hmm. And we're going way, way back. This whole movie's surrounding the scandal of the 1919 White Sox, which if you've read The Great Gatsby, there's a reference in there to that team. The players weren't getting paid particularly well. I heard the owner screwed them over and wasn't paying them, so they took bribes to throw the World Series and then got banned and felt bad about it.
Yeah, and this is where for younger listeners, or if you're going to watch it with your kids, they don't know that history. I think when we were growing up in the 80s, I guess it was close enough that I remember
that history.
I knew that. I feel like I remember knowing that, maybe because I watched The Natural, which sort of touches on that a little bit in terms of bribery.
Does The Natural go into that too?
There's a plot line in The Natural where the pitcher is sort of under the thumb of a local businessman, and the Robert Redford character was like, cut that shit out. Anyway, that's a whole other episode we can do another time. Great movie. I really hope that one lives up. Oh my God. So I feel like I was aware of it. And I would venture to say I might have seen part of the Ken Burns documentary before I saw this.
Well, no, the Ken Burns documentary didn't come out till like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, really?
So there's no way you saw that.
No, 10, 15 years ago, the
baseball one.
No.
Oh, phone is coming out. I am Googling
Google
this
that shit, because I think you're wrong. I think baseball came out a while ago.
No, 1994.
Okay.
You did not see Ken Burns baseball before
1989. Okay, but when I was watching this movie, it was in the 90s. I could have very well done that. Anyway, whatever. I was right.
I'm not
I was right.
buying
I was right.
it. No, you are not.
I think I was right. But the point is I was aware of it.
Jess's memory does not live up.
No, it doesn't. My wife could tell you it doesn't.
She's drinking a lot of bourbon, folks. A lot of bourbon.
This episode has already gotten off the rails. But my point. I'm going to make the point. Bringing it back. All
right. What the hell were we talking about?
We were arguing over whether I knew about the White Sox scandal. And of course I did. And I would venture to guess that most kids these days don't. So you have to explain it to your kids. So I think I might have even paused the movie to explain who Shoeless Joe Jackson was and that there was a whole gambling scandal for 1919. Because 1919 at this point is more than 100 years ago.
Hold on, kids. we're going to stop this movie and put on a Ken Burns documentary for 12 hours.
I verbally tried to give a summary of the Ken Burns documentary. Other than that point, I've lost the plot of this conversation.
Okay, we were trying to talk about how this movie digs into some older baseball references, and that's kind of the driver. The inciting incident of this movie is that he's a big fan of Shoeless Joe, even though Shoeless Joe was caught gambling in 1919.
Yeah, so I'd say that there's something that dates the movie, because if you're watching it in the 90s or 1989, I'd say baseball was sort of still and probably at the tail end of its peak as America's pastime.
Yeah.
Maybe that peak, I'd like to say that it extended through, the Jeter era as a Yankee fan. But anyway, I think it was at the tail end of its like capture of American imagination. And it also with it has this nostalgia for what the kind of the best of what America is. In a weird way, baseball's wrapped up into that, and that does go over the heads, I think, of younger people, because we could remember that even though if we were at the tail end, and I don't think people younger than us can.
You and I watched a lot of baseball as kids. Like our appreciation for the sport and sitting through a battle between the pitcher and the batter, and like we get the nuances. We have the patience to sit through it. We're not scrolling through TikTok videos as we're watching a game.
I might be, but
different generation.
So I'd say that people our age and adults rewatching this, in some ways, the nostalgia is more potent, because I think it kind of comes to an end, and on some level with our generation in a way, because there's so much choice. So there's
no, Jess is gonna cry.
I know, I've had too much bourbon. I think
she's getting teared up. She's had a lot of bourbon.
But I think that,
baseball, bourbon, apple pie, America, F yeah.
Totally. And you combine that with the Horner score, and there is a lot of feels going on with baseball and nostalgia. But anyway, I noticed that when they were in Fenway Park, they spent $7 on 2 beers and 2 hot dogs. And that's ridiculous. Yeah. But anyway.
Man, those were the days. Now I'm getting nostalgic.
You're getting nostalgic for $7 for 2 hot dogs and 2 beers. It's crazy.
I mean, when I was in high school, you could get bleacher seats day of to Fenway Park, which was always sold out, for $20. Like, just show up, $20, sit in the bleachers. It probably was $4 a beer.
I'm going to burst your bubble here. I'm going to burst your bubble because Amanda, Red Sox fan, and we've talked about this, but because the Red Sox are essentially the Yankees now, that's what happens when you turn into the Yankees. You can't get bleacher seats for a good price or have $4 beers, because you're the New York Yankees now. And as a Yankee fan, I'm very satisfied in that we've turned you into what you hate. But anyway, I digress.
I said this in the Major League episode, but if it means we're winning and kicking your ass, I will take it.
Maybe not this year, but okay.
Yeah, we're having a rebuilding year, but actually they're not that bad for a rebuilding year. All right, let's talk about the movie we came to.
Yeah, let's do that.
Tonight.
That's a good idea.
Field of Dreams. We like to go character by character. And the big star of this movie, having his hot dad summer, it's Kevin Costner as Ray Kinsella. And I need to just call out, this movie is based on a novel written by someone with the last name Kinsella.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Obviously not a memoir, because there's a lot of ghosts in it, unless it's the most screwed up memoir I've ever heard of. Yeah. But yes, as a nod to the writer of the book, we have the Kinsella family with the patriarch, Kevin Costner. In rewatching this, I was just like, oh my god, is this what David Duchovny stole when he created the character Fox Mulder? Because the opening of this movie feels like an X-Files episode.
It kind of does.
You see Kevin Costner walking through a cornfield, and there's a whispering voice.
Yeah, there is.
And he's just like, what the heck? And like, honey, did you hear that? No. He just keeps hearing this voice, but he's reacting with such a Mulder-like deadpan. I just couldn't get that out of my head. Like, oh, this is just like one of the X-Files episodes where it ended nicely, which was only a few episodes of the X-Files.
Yeah, you're ready for some crop thing. What is that called? Like the crop imprints?
The crop circles?
The crop circles. Yeah, I was ready for the crop circles to start dropping.
What if they, instead of a whisper, it had spelled it out in this field?
Oh!
Build it, they will come.
Oh my god, you could do a...
That's a lot of like cursive.
It is, but you could do a whole sci-fi version of this that is crop circles and aliens. That'd be great.
This would make a phenomenal sci-fi movie when it turns out, oh, actually, we just beamed up the 1919 White Sox. And
I guess.
they've been in space this whole time.
Just combine it with M. Night Shyamalan's Signs, and we have a movie.
Signs? Oh, baseball in space.
Yes!
With Mel Gibson.
Oh, that's just reboot him for this.
Cancel.
Well, we do manifest remakes in this podcast, i.e. Beetlejuice, so, I don't know.
It's going to be called Signs of Dreams.
So it would be like Signs of Nightmares. That's what it would be. We would have to reverse it.
And instead of like a cute little daughter with like quirky one-liners, it's going to be that creepy little girl from Signs who's like, the water's contaminated.
Oh my God. So creepy.
Hollywood, call us. We are full of ideas.
We're full of it. Yeah, it'd be great. We are full of it, actually. Never mind.
Let's talk about Kevin Costner. He is your quintessential all-American guy. He loves baseball. He's moved to Iowa, and he's scared of turning into his father. So this is a midlife crisis movie.
Absolutely. A midlife crisis movie. I did appreciate the midlife crisis aspect of it now as an adult. Not that I'm
He's only
crisis.
36, though. Hold on.
No.
That's not midlife. I mean, was it back in 1989?
Maybe.
I don't even think then it was midlife.
I mean, I definitely have in my notes, like, this is a boomer in a midlife crisis kind of movie. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. But that's what it is. But I related to it on some level because I'm like, I don't know, I'm older than the character is now. And I certainly saw it from his perspective. But I don't know, like Kevin Costner, like we really kind of dragged him for our Prince of Thieves episode. And I was worried about him for this. I found him to be young and handsome and kind of endearing in this. I really liked him.
Are you moving to the Kevin Costner's hot side of the hot or not debate?
I mean...
As a lesbian?
I know.
need to know this.
It's my time in the podcast where I, of course, have to remind listeners that I'm the resident lesbian.
Jess is our resident lesbian expert.
I am, but I was struck by how young and handsome he is in this. And I thought he was also really endearing. There's some cute things he does. I mean, yes, he's in a midlife crisis. But he has some funny moments, like when he's trying to kidnap the James Earl Jones character and he's completely hapless at it. He's sort of completely hapless about farming. There are some things that are kind of endearing about him. And I was worried that he was going to be really wooden and cheesy, but I found him charming.
He's charming, but in a very milquetoast kind of way for me.
Yeah.
I'm not aboard the Kevin Costner's hot train as a straight woman. But
I feel like your opinion counts more than mine here. So
does it though? I mean, we've established there is a absolute fan base for Kevin Costner.
Totally.
1989 was having his hot dad summer. He's a good dad.
Yeah.
He's a good father, a good husband, and probably a shitty farmer. I don't know what he's doing out in that cornfield. There's a montage in the beginning where it's like, oh, he and his wife Annie are college sweethearts. They graduate from Berkeley. They move out to Iowa. And then he's suddenly 36. And I don't get what he's been doing that whole time in between. A little bit of that would have helped me see, like, okay, this is why he's hit the midlife crisis. Like, he fucking hates corn. Like, I just needed to see him hating corn or something.
See, I actually I didn't need that. As a kid, I didn't think much of it at all. So this was the other...
No, because kids don't understand midlife.
Right. As, watching it now 30 plus years later, I read it that he was actually kind of content, but just had lingering daddy issues that needed to be resolved.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously the daddy issues is a key part of the plot, but I didn't need him to hate corn. I think it made it more interesting that he was content and then uprooted his whole life to listen to the voices in his head.
Yeah, no, I suppose you have a point here because his driver he's scared of turning into his father.
Absolutely.
And he says his father never did anything spontaneous.
He quote unquote never forgave him for being old, as he shared that with the James Earl Jones character, which I read that as like both an eye roll boomer daddy issue guy, but also like, okay, I kind of could appreciate that now as an adult. For Kevin Costner, I guess in short, I'm relieved that I still liked him in this because I was worried about it.
I thought he did better than Prince of Thieves, definitely. Or he was more enthusiastic about what he was doing here.
Yeah. I thought he had this like childlike wonder sometimes that was kind of endearing, or something kind of relatable. Just like I was saying, his haphazard way that he kidnaps James Earl Jones, which got a laugh out of my kids. He's pretending his finger is a gun, and James Earl Jones is like, you don't have a freaking gun. So it like the whole absurdity of it.
I thought parts of that were a little bit silly, stupid, but like, all right, if the kids laughed, great.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
He's rehearsing it in the car as he drives up. Like,
oh, but I thought that was so cute.
Well, at that point, it was just like he's going through like how to introduce himself to James Earl Jones's character and is nervous about it. And so there's iterations, and then finally he's just like, "You're being kidnapped. Yeah. I have a gun."
And the kids thought it was funny. I found it believable that he was hearing the voices and wanted to follow the logic of the voices. He wasn't strident about it.
Okay. So this is a good segue to talking about his wife.
Yes.
Annie Kinsella, played by Amy Madigan. He has voices in his head, and yeah, if you're going through voices in your head, sure, eventually they might win the argument. But if you're the spouse in this situation,
God. I know.
Honey, what are you doing? She is on board way too quickly with this.
Yeah.
Oh, your spouse says he has a voice telling him to take your life savings and build a baseball field in the yard. And not just like, oh, we're putting up bleachers and mowing down some corn. Like, he's getting the stadium lights. Those are expensive to purchase? No. And she's just cheerleading him the whole way. I found that very unrealistic. I mean, this is a lady with a college degree from Berkeley.
Yeah. I think though that's part of like this. There's a sort of childlike wonder that all the characters have to have to you suspend your disbelief on some level. So yeah, as an adult watching it now, I'm like, oh my God, any wife would murder their husbands over this complete insanity.
God, yeah.
She has a great line that's like, this, hey Ray, this is a very non-specific voice you have there. It's starting to piss me off. So she has some of those lines where you see that full character, that she's not some woman who just listens to everything her husband says. But but then when he convinces her, and part of the plot where they have that same dream of him sitting at Fenway with the James Earl Jones character, she then is in. And I believed it slightly less as an adult, but it's enough there that you're like, okay, I could kind of accept this.
So she is giving off, way before this was a thing, she's a absolute OG manic pixie dream girl. I mean, she is spunky, yes. She's quirky, absolutely. She's flying around this house.
Super fun.
Actually, I do love the way they decorated their whole house, and actually all of this movie. It felt like a very realistic house in Iowa.
Yeah.
Like, they're not tidy. It's not like Instagram chic, like, oh, look at my farmhouse.
Right.
Aesthetic.
No, not at all.
Like, this place...
There's stacks of bills in the corner.
It's cluttered.
Yeah, it's cluttered.
Yeah, they're living a real life in this house. I like that part. She just... Where is the Scully in this situation? I need a voice of practicality here, just going, sometimes the voices in your head aren't a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're a misleading, not the voice of God, that could be the voice of something like a brain tumor. Right. I just want you to get that checked out.
One way ticket to insanity.
She doesn't question any of it.
I think, though, if you made the wife character really against the idea and eminently practical, it wouldn't be such a movie of wonder. Like, you have to suspend some sort of disbelief, and you have to sort of believe in ghosts, and you have to believe in heaven, you have to believe in all these things to kind of accept the plot. She has to kind of go along with it. I like that she's still kind of spunky, though. But yeah, as watching it as an adult, I'm like, that's insane. Like, my wife would freaking divorce me.
No. Yeah.
Oh my God.
We need a financial counselor to weigh in on this.
I know, it's insane. Like, the
proceed. We're
just two cynical middle-aged people being like, or Lily is too at age 12 when she's watching it. And she's like, no sane person would do that.
You do see, like, they're losing their mortgage. They're losing their house. It's like, we're doing this all for the good feels.
Yeah.
But if you lose your house, you with a
And you have
kid,
a kid,
are now out
yeah.
like, staying in a hotel because you need to find a new place to live, and you've given up your source of income. I don't know. We're being middle-aged about this.
We really
are.
are.
Don't have the sense of wonder. I've cited I would not be able to see these ghost baseball players because I'm just like, no. So many red flags.
I will
don't
not
this baseball
mow
field.
over my corn. It will not
Absolutely
happen.
not.
Absolutely
What are you
not.
doing, man? So yeah, the Annie character. And again, Amy Madigan plays this wonderfully. Like she
really
is
does.
quirky and spunky
Great.
and a lot of fun. She's just immediately like, oh, okay, cool. Voices in your head, build a baseball field, and let's see what happens. Just do it. I can't get on board with that.
I'm really curious what adults thought when the movie came out. Were they
I'm wondering
appalled?
how many 36-year-olds rented this from Blockbuster and were watching it from their family, and their husband was like, oh, I have such a good idea. And the wife was, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No. No.
Directly to divorce. Do not pass go.
You're not getting the Corvette. You're not getting a boat. You are not. Nope. Absolutely not. No. So that probably happened thousands and thousands of times across America in 1989 as people were sitting there with a little Blockbuster video case.
Oh my God. I love this scene that you set. It's such a perfect scene.
Oh, so many eyes lighting up like, oh, and so many wives being like, no.
So she does, the wife, what is her character name again? Annie. She does have that iconic scene though, which I love, which is that the school is, and this is part of the plot that leads them to James Earl Jones, but the school is on a book banning, self-righteous parade, and there's a school board meeting.
God, that's so far in the past.
I know.
I can't imagine that going on in America. Meanwhile, in Florida.
Oh my God. I don't know why Ron DeSantis just entered the chat, but apparently he did. So the scene is that they go to I guess it's some sort of PTA or community meeting about these upright bitches trying to ban books, which, as you've just noted, is so painfully relevant today. And watching it, I was like, oh God, I can't believe we're still doing this, people. And that whole scene triggers, so the book they want to ban is the book that, quote unquote, Terrence Mann wrote, and Terrence Mann's character is James Earl Jones. But I love the scene because Annie gets in a fight with this uptight bitch and calls her a Nazi cow for wanting to ban a book. And I loved it.
That's a great thing to call someone, by the way, who's into burning books. Yeah.
Nazi
yeah, you're a Nazi cow.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis, you're a Nazi cow. Just saying.
He's a Nazi cow. Not a bull. You're a Nazi cow.
You have udders. You're a fucking cow.
Oh.
Yeah. So I still liked that scene, and I was a little sad that it's relevant, but it was still super fun to watch. I loved it.
That also felt like your best liberal case fantasy about how a PTA meeting about banning books is going to end.
Oh, yeah. A challenge to a
fist fight. She gives a rousing speech, and that she gets the whole crowd on her side after, they do threaten each other to go outside.
I love it.
I would love people to show up at PTA meetings and deliver her speech verbatim, and people will not get the reference. I think they
will.
Not get,
I think they will.
Oh, the people who are trying to ban the books won't.
True. But who cares about them?
The natural course. See how that actually ends.
And even though we're picking apart, she has a degree from Berkeley, she should have done something. It's part of believing, and I think that's what you need to do to enjoy this movie. So stop being so cynical,
this is
Amanda.
A big movie about. I mean, it's the Polar Express. You either hear the bell ring or you don't. And our main characters, they're hearing the bell ring before there's even a train.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
they're ready.
And you have to be in as the audience.
That was a Christmas metaphor I just used.
I
there.
like it.
I don't know if you've seen or read that.
I've seen it once, and I did not like it.
Okay,
yeah, don't make me watch it.
Interesting.
Oh my God,
that's not the movie I picked out.
Oh, you have one already? Don't tell me.
Oh, it's coming.
Me. Oh, God.
Oh, listeners, just know there might be some misers involved. Jess is going to have her head explode.
I don't even know what that means. Oh, no.
I know. That's why it's so funny, because you're going to hate this so much.
Oh, boo.
But we'll deal with that in December. Anyway, back to Fields of Dreams. So the Kinsella family, they build their baseball field. We should talk about the rules of this baseball
How does it work?
field
Tell
that
me.
they've set up. So he builds it, and he will come, as the prophecy says. He is Shoeless Joe. We'll talk about him in a minute. So these ghosts start showing up to play baseball in the field. First thing I noticed, they don't show up for a while. I'm not clear on this, but I think the implication is they only show up for baseball season.
Yeah, because
he
you
builds
see
the field,
snow.
and he waits and waits, and it's
Yeah.
Christmas, and it snows on the field, which, I mean, at this point, Annie, come on, are we... Planting season's coming.
Yeah, as a kid, I like they're totally over my head. But yeah, it's the first time watching this that I noticed that a lot of time had passed between building the field and him coming, if you will.
Yeah, so I think that rule is that it has to be baseball season for the baseball ghosts to arrive.
Yeah, good
So
rule.
That's, I think, rule number 1. The second rule is only people who believe that the ghost baseball players are there can see them.
That's right. Yeah, because the
People
brother-in-law
don't
does
believe-
not see.
He walks
players.
right across the field in the middle of a pitch, I think.
It's just
And,
crazy.
yeah, you can't walk in the field during a game. What
Yeah.
are you doing, man?
I mean, it just folks don't remember. He basically walks past as the pitcher is pitching to the batter, and this is the brother-in-law,
Can't see
Yeah.
it, can't feel it.
and he's the one trying to get
doesn't
them.
get a wind.
Yeah, he's the one trying to get them to sell to his partners. Yeah, he's not a believer, and he's eminently practical like the rest of us. And there's just a kind of a cool scene because, like, I don't think you could manufacture that digitally. Like, he had to walk through.
Yeah, no, it's...
Yeah,
They're doing
they're
that.
doing that. It's kind of cool to watch, actually.
Well, it brings it home very clearly that the non-believers cannot see the
That's
baseball
right.
game
Yeah.
going on. Much like in the Polar Express, you can't hear the bell ring unless you believe in Santa. So that's the second rule. The third rule seems to be that the ghost players cannot step off the field.
Yeah, there's some
And
sort
the
of border.
Yeah, if the one player who does step off the field to help the family in a medical crisis, we'll get into this later,
Moonlight Graham, if you will.
instantly gets old, and then they're like, you must go into the corn and die.
Pretty much.
now."
You have to
Like,
go
it's-
back. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you're done playing. Your game is over.
I mean, I get the sense that the ghosts, and I didn't really think about this at the time as a kid, is they don't quite know where they are either. They're like, is this heaven?
It's the iconic line, like, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
Right,
Like,
right.
I don't know how Iowa doesn't have that on their state.
They must.
Like, on their
somewhere.
license plates or entering the state. Somewhere. But yeah, no, it should be on their license plates.
Absolutely.
Field of Dreams was filmed here.
Yeah.
Forget the bridges of Madison County. We have Field of Dreams.
Yeah, much better. This is better.
So it's a little bit like Beetlejuice, that the ghosts can't leave the house. This is the ghosts can't leave the field. And they're not sure why they're called back there. So maybe actually this is a very good continuation on Beetlejuice rules.
Yeah.
And when they go back into the cornfield, are they going into the waiting room in Beetlejuice?
I don't know.
Who knows what goes on in the cornfield?
Yeah, there's a mystery to it, which I think is still kind of cool.
Yeah, but seemingly, if you go into the cornfield with the ghosts, then now you're dead. It doesn't feel like
I
a
don't
death,
think
but
so.
when James Earl Jones as Terrence Mann
Yeah.
gets summoned to come with them into the cornfield at the end, like, he's dead.
No, I don't
right?
read that way at all. I think he gets to visit. I think he got like a one-time only visitor pass because they want him there.
He doesn't
so he
come
could,
back.
He doesn't come back, but he
No.
writes stories. That's the whole thing, is that they want him there, and when James Earl Jones is trying to make Ray feel better.
Oh, no. I
Really? I totally read this differently.
interpreted that as, your time is up, come with us into the cornfield.
Really? Because I read it as, we are inviting you, Terrence Mann, the character, who is James Earl Jones, to come with us.
Yep.
And the reasoning that Terrence Mann kind of relays to Ray, who's jealous of that, is that, well, think of the stories I will tell. There's a reason they chose me, because I'm a writer and I know how to tell stories. And I think, Ray doesn't have to stay because he's alive. Ray has to stay because his dad showed up. So I read this totally differently.
I know. Oh my God, we have a major disagreement.
We do.
on
I think
what
you're
the
wrong.
implication of the cornfield is. I think that meant that Terrence Mann, like, that was.
But
the
then
end of
why
the
would
line.
they
And
choose
that was
him?
why.
Why would they choose him?
Well, that was the reason that Ray had to go out to Boston, get him, and drive him back to this cornfield. He had to go to his place. And
See, I read it as because the voice.
Maybe he'll come back into the field as a ghost. No,
so I read it as so the voice that sends him to find Terrence Mann. I think that it instead of if you build it, he will come. It says ease his pain, right? So
ease his pain,
right, which I think at the end you realized is about the dad, ease the dad's pain or ease Ray's pain. But I read that as that Terrence Mann, the character, had stopped writing. He became a total cynic, and that by giving this like hallway pass to heaven, he'll start writing again. I really don't like your version.
I don't think he's coming back.
You have like a horror film where they basically killed James Earl Jones. No, I don't like it.
No, I seriously thought they did.
Really? Oh,
yes.
So I'm 100% sure that listeners will think one of us is insane for our beliefs here, but I really want to know this rule.
Well, no,
because I think we're different.
Okay, so we're jumping way ahead in the characters here, and but yeah, we're trying to talk about the rules.
Yeah,
in Field of Dreams. So they've got this whole journey that Ray goes on where he builds the field. Great, he starts hearing the voice again. He has to go get writer Terrence Mann, played by James Earl Jones, in Boston, picks him up, and then starts getting other signals from Fenway Park, because, our scoreboard does whisper weird shit at people, but you have to
Jesus
follow
Christ.
It. So then they go off to, I believe it's Minnesota, and pick up another ghost baseball player.
The voice says, go the distance.
Kind of a MacGuffin journey at this point, but they go and pick up this ghost baseball player who is a Dr. Graham, and
I love that scene.
When they all are together back in Iowa at the baseball field, and Dr. Graham is reliving his youth as a baseball player and finally getting to get that hit that he always wanted when he was a player. But the second he steps off the field, he ages. And then they are very clear, he's going into the cornfield and he's not coming back. And, in my head, it was the cornfield is not heaven or hell, but it's just kind of a passage into another place. And I think the implication was you have this very cynical writer, Terrence Mann. He's burned out. He's taken this final journey all the way across from Boston to Minnesota, down to Iowa, and they're calling him back. I think we're letting him go.
I'm going to agree to disagree. I think that they called him back to sort of be a muse for him as a writer. And I did not at all interpret this, even as a kid, as an adult rewatching it 30 years later, I did not read it as a death at all.
I think with Dr. Graham, they've set the precedent. You go into the cornfield, this is it.
Yeah,
you're not coming back.
I guess I think it's because it's this whimsical thing. It's a moment in weird time of heaven that you get to have a hall pass for. I don't know. I'm really stretching it here, but I don't think that there's strict rules that the script writers did here because Moonlight Graham is already dead. So
he is.
Yeah, I think
he's been dead. So he's a ghost baseball player.
So he's allowed to live his dream, but then as soon as he violates that rule of going past the line of the field, he then can't relive his dream anymore, and he has to go back to that mysterious place in the cornfield. So I guess I guess you could read that as a second death, but I think I kind of read it as he had his hall pass and he decided to give it up.
We have very different reads.
We totally do. The whole Moonlight Graham storyline, if folks don't remember, there's a whole sidetrack. Ray and James Earl Jones' character, they're driving back to Iowa, and all of a sudden they think in terms of go the distance. They know they're trying to find Moonlight Graham in Minnesota. So they're going there and then somehow veer into a time-space continuum and pick up a young Moonlight Graham who's in his 20s and wants to play ball for a local field, which is a very 1920s thing. They also then go and slip into time in the 70s when Moonlight Graham is now an old man and tells Ray's character that this has always been his dream, that when he was a ball player, he never got to hit in the major leagues, but he, was very happy as a, small town doctor. So then randomly he shows up in Iowa and all the players expect the young version of Moonlight Graham to be there to relive his dream. And he starts playing with the players. I personally found the Moonlight Graham thing to be really moving. I really liked it still.
It's, yeah, no, that tugs on your heart.
It does.
It's
I love the old man
very
part.
sweet
I love it.
side plot. It's, yeah. I know, we were talking about the rules, but we disagree on the rules.
Totally, yeah.
I don't think there's a agree to disagree here. I think we need our listeners to chime in on...
Our listeners,
just you go into the cornfield.
Tell Amanda she's wrong.
Is that... Jess, I hate to tell you, when they sent your dog to that farm state, like...
I never owned a dog. Doesn't matter. I don't believe you.
When you go into the cornfield, it takes you to a magical farm.
See, I'm thinking of it as a magical farm, and you're thinking of it as fucking death. I mean, I feel like I win.
It's death, but like he's going to a better place.
Yeah, and Moonlight Graham is just going to go join his older wife in heaven. Like, he got to live his dream, going back. This is what I'm choosing to believe, and you're ruining it for me.
I'm sorry. Okay, your dog is still alive.
Okay, so I'm putting a poll up on the socials, and everybody can weigh in of which one of us is wrong.
Please weigh in.
So is fading into the cornfield, is it death? Or are you just kind of going to this other place and you get to come back? Like, does Terrence Mann, is he dead? Is he dead? That's the question. I think we should talk about ghost number 1, finally.
Okay. Yes, we've skipped past the main ghost in this to go to Dr. Graham, and we'll talk more about Dr. Graham in a moment. But yes, ghost number 1 who appears is Shoeless Joe Jackson, played by the great late Ray Liotta.
Yeah, he was great. I love Ray Liotta in this. I think as Shoeless Joe, he both has the gravitas of a kind of a tough guy gangster that you know him to be, but yet also has kind of the emotional heart component. So to me, he's a perfect 10 casting for this. I just love the character. The character itself he's kind of an asshole and confident, and he's tough on rookies, but he's also really heartfelt about things. Like, he's heartfelt about Ray's family. He's heartfelt about, again, when Moonlight Graham goes and saves the kid, he's the one that says, you were really a good player. So he has all of these complex things. I loved him in this.
Yeah.
Don't burst my bubble, Amanda.
I mean, I'm not. No. Ray Liotta's just awesome and everything.
He really is.
I think this is right around the time he's doing Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a great movie.
He has such a balance of, he could be funny and wild, but at the same time, he's like a little bit doe-eyed. I got swept up in this thing, and I really just want to play baseball.
Right.
That's all I want to do here. As the movie progresses and he gets looser with Ray's character, and they're joking around, they're making fun of Ray for like getting called in for dinner at one point.
Yeah,
like, it just
so
has
funny.
This very charming teammate Sassany vibe. Which, by the way, I need to just call out. Ray gets called in for dinner. The whole Ghost baseball team's giving him crap, like, "Honey, dinner!" Like,
I love that scene.
as he's walking away for dinner. He gets in. She's still making dinner. Like, there is not dinner at all ready.
Damn, Annie, get your shit together.
Don't call him in. They're going to make fun of him.
I love it.
But yeah, no, I think Ray Liotta's awesome in this. He's bewildered, but also just happy to be there. And
he's ultimately the narrator.
Just perfect.
You believe him to be the voice.
I don't think he is.
I
don't think he is the voice.
Amanda, we are like, did we watch the same movie? He's
not literally the voice.
He's not literally the voice, but I think he gives away at the end when he says to Ray, if you build it, and then he turns and looks at essentially Ray's dad and says, he will come. So I read that to be that he was the one kind of driving the whole thing. Or he at least knew the whole thing.
I took it as someone, we're saying someone, these are ghosts.
These are fictional ghosts.
So like, yes. Yeah, no, that it was just like this omniscient presence.
Yes, I could agree.
I wasn't attributing it to any specific character in this. Although, I need to call out, I don't have a lot of nerdy trivia on this like I usually do. They still don't know who is the voice of the voice in this movie, like who recorded that. But the theories are, so Amy Madigan, who played Annie, is married to...
she's married to Harris.
Ed Harris. Yes. So the theory is that they had Ed Harris sneak in and record the voice.
Oh, so it's
for
not
this,
credited,
nobody,
the voice? You don't know who it is?
Nobody
Oh,
says who the voice is. No, because it says in the credits, it's like the voice, and then it says himself.
I love that.
That's what it said in the credits. I caught that and was like, like,
that's so funny.
Are you trying to make like a God joke here? Like, what,
I love that. Himself.
The voice.
Yeah,
himself. All right, big question for you, because you played. How is this baseball game? How is this formed?
So, so Major League listeners, we had a whole discussion is that Major League did baseball good.
Most of the players did it good, and when they couldn't, the camera work made up for
and even the intensity of certain games in Major League as it was depicted felt like real baseball. I think the real baseball aspect of this movie was really just in the background. So I didn't really care as much for this one. It was sort of inconsequential. Like, unlike Major League or Bull Durham or The Natural, where the actual gameplay is really important, like you have a lot of stakes involved of the win or loss, there's no stakes here for the baseball game. They're just out to have a good time.
So there's a scene early on where they've built the field, Shoeless Joe shows up, and they're just doing a little pitching and hitting, and something in my head, I was just like, oh, I really want Shoeless Joe to just hit Ray.
Just line drive to the face.
Like, I don't know. There's something compulsive about it. I was just like, just ding him. Just graze him a little bit. I just want to see Kevin Costner not be good at baseball. And Shoeless Joe drives a ball right into the Wilson bag. They have like a ball bag next to the pitching mound.
Yeah.
They're just, screwing around. And like nearly drills him. And I was like, oh, there it is. Like close enough that it made him jump. I read that was just a total coincidence that he hit a line drive into the bag. But like...
That's funny.
I wasn't feeling the hot dad summer.
Yeah.
And so I apologize, everyone. I just really wanted to see Ray Liotta hit Kevin Costner with a baseball in one way or the other.
You're so mean.
It was mean. I apologize to Mr. Costner. All right. We have a couple more characters in this movie we want to talk about. We haven't done a deep dive on James Earl Jones as Terrence Mann yet.
Yeah.
This is a fictitious writer he's playing, despite there's a lot of historic characters in here. It requires a road trip to Boston. I'm totally on board for that because they're driving through neighborhoods where I'm like, oh, look at how that looked in 1989.
I'll just say, James Earl Jones, to me, I love him as an actor. Obviously, he's iconic in a million ways. He's appeared in this podcast before for our Coming to America episode. He obviously, Darth Vader, the whole thing. He's the voice of the Lion King. I love him in everything, and I think he's also funny. So I thought he was also kind of perfect in this. He's a cranky cynic, but yet he has these other moments that are kind of really emotional and powerful.
He brings gravitas to everything he does, except for Coming to America, where they're making him say the words, sow your royal oats.
Okay, but he's still great in that. So that's okay.
Great, but I feel like the script didn't live up to his gravitas.
No, but that makes it funnier.
This movie lets him do a whole soliloquy on memory and what's important to you, and it's a beautiful speech they give him at the end, and then they let him walk into a cornfield.
But he doesn't die.
Jess still thinks is the farm upstate. He nails it though. He is so good in this movie. He is a curmudgeon who is very broken by it sounds like he's just been harassed by having a public persona into being a hermit who hates people, and he's living in his little apartment and doesn't want anyone disturbing him. And Ray, Kevin Costner's character, just kind of breaks through. Again, the trope we've seen in several movies about guys in the 80s who just walk into your apartment.
So many movies. So many.
Seem to
or your place of work.
Give a shit.
He's shown up multiple times in this podcast.
You should be calling the cops on these guys, but I guess this was a thing in the 80s. So he breaks him down and drags him to a baseball game, buys him a beer and a hot dog, and for $7, I mean, that's
$7, it's a steal.
Fenway Park. And then both of them see a message on the scoreboard, and James Earl Jones's character is pretending no, I didn't see anything. Just drop me off. This is done here. Kevin Costner's character is driving the VW bus away. He just appears in front of the headlights suddenly, he's about to get hit by. really, we're back to X-Files territory here.
Yeah.
Like, he almost pops out of nowhere in the dark. It's just like, boo, stop! Like, that part I did not see coming from that character. Like, he seemed very resigned to, like, I'm just gonna keep it to myself that I saw what's going on here and not keep this up. But he gets fully on board.
Yeah, and James Earl Jones, to me, because he comes with gravitas, when he's fully on board, then I become a full believer in this plot. And part of that is because James Earl Jones is Darth Vader, and, like, if he says something is true, it's fucking true. That's all I have to say.
Jess, have you ever seen a baseball game at Fenway Park?
Yes.
In person?
I mean, whatever.
What did the scoreboard tell you during that game?
Literally don't remember. I mean, it did not tell me Moonlight Graham's stats from, like, 1920.
You're supposed to get a cryptic, life-changing message every time you go to Fenway Park. Why do you think we all love it so much? I mean, it's the oldest ballpark.
Not
the
buying
seats
it
are
as a Yankee
uncomfortable.
fan.
It's
Ridiculous.
tiny, but you go there because the scoreboard has something life-changing on it. That's the whole point.
Yeah, no, you're not convincing this Yankee fan that that's that exciting.
Just missed the message.
I missed the message because I'm a Yankee
Missed
fan.
the
I'm
message.
not a believer in the Red Sox. I'm not going to see the message.
She saw a message that said, "Don't go into the cornfield yet."
You'll
She just
die!
didn't know what it meant.
You know, and just you were saying about his speech, James Earl Jones' speech.
Yeah,
I love the
no,
speech. It's Shakespeare.
Yeah, Terrence Mann
It's so good.
puts up a defense of baseball and of nostalgia and like everything you grew up loving that you have to give up as you become an adult. He just gives this passion defense of it. It's not a turning moment, but like you've hit the part of the movie where it's like, this is what we're doing here. Like, this is the whole point of the movie.
The bankers are there. The brother-in-law's there saying, you have to sell to my partners so you don't get foreclosed on.
You have
at this pivotal
bankrupted
moment.
your farm with this baseball field that
Right.
you built because of voice in your head.
And just as he's thinking of signing, like, Terrence Mann / voice of God, James Earl Jones comes out with a speech. And as he's giving the speech, the players even stop their game to listen. And there's so many good quotable things in the speech. Like, he's describing how people will come to watch these old players. And he says the memories will be so thick, they'll have to brush them away from their faces. And he has a ton of lines like that you're so in as a viewer. I was in 30 years later. I think I cried.
I mean, is there anything better in a movie or in life than a curmudgeon coming around?
Nothing!
And like finding his heart.
It's perfect.
So-
You're absolutely right.
That's what this character is.
Definitely.
Like the second he jumps in front of that VW bus and nearly gets flattened, he jumps in. They go to Minnesota in the search of Dr. Archibald Moonlight Graham. But I just want to say, when they get there, he goes around and like interviews everybody in the town, everybody in the bar. Like, what do you know about this guy who died back in, I think it was like 1977 or 72, and like gets all these personal testimonies about the quirks of this person and how important this person was. And he's a writer investigating a subject, but like finding the heart in the town for this one person. He didn't get up to bat at all. But then he went on and became a doctor and he changed lives. This gets into your like heartstrings being tugged.
Absolutely.
This is just drinking bourbon and sobbing a little bit.
Just a little bit.
All of the stuff about this character.
Well, I think what I found to appreciate about that one scene you're describing, I loved it. I loved that the Terrence Mann character is interviewing and he's sort of like finding his writer in this.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you think. And of course I didn't think about this shit when I was 10 watching this movie or 9 or whatever. You know, it makes you think about what is really important. Is the dream of playing baseball, does that really matter in comparison to the life you lived? You do kind of see it from that angle that I did not see when I was younger.
Yes.
And it wasn't cheesy the way they did it. It could have been ridiculous and schmaltzy, but it really wasn't.
So I'm going to lay some nerd notes out on you.
Lay it on me.
And the goal is maybe we make you cry a little bit because you just had 2 bourbons. When they go in pursuit of finding Dr. Graham and they arrive in this small town, they go to, there's like a librarian or a researcher who is reading the obituary for this man. And Dr. Graham is a real person. And that actually was his real obituary.
No way! I did not know that.
They read in the movie.
Get out of here!
Yes.
Blew my mind.
And so they read it, and James Earl Jones' character, Terrence, says, "You're a good writer." And she just pats him on the arm and says, You are too.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet.
Super sweet.
The actress who performed that whole scene died right after they filmed that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Sad.
So, like, she delivered this beautiful scene right
It really is a great scene.
It's so in line with, like, what this movie's trying to do. Like, are you making people have a better life? Are you touching people? I think that's what the goal of this movie is. I didn't make Jess cry, by the way.
I noticed that scene that scene had a more emotional impact.
That's
to me.
a beautiful scene.
It's a beautiful scene because when she gets the compliment, "You're a good writer," my mind went immediately to like, well, what was her dream? Like, you kind of imagine that, you know, this older woman probably was really talented, and here she is working at the library or local, which is totally cool. But it touches all the feels, and I didn't pick up on how well-rounded that scene was until now, and I can't. That's amazing that he was a real person. I didn't realize that. Moonlight Graham, meaning. Oh. Yeah, that part was probably the part I was most nervous about being really dumb, but it was just even better.
I didn't remember that was in there at all. So like, it was just like, oh, who's this? They were trying to get Jimmy Stewart to play that character. Oh, right. And he'd like retired at that point. They end up with Burt Lancaster, who is, icon of the screen. And like, we reviewed Airplane in our last episode. He is the actor who is in that From Here to Eternity scene where they get like drowned on the beach as they're making out.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
That's Burt Lancaster. He also starred in 1970s Airport, which is kind of what Airplane is parodying. Yeah. But no, he's like, you know, Oscar nominated, lengthy career. This was his last film because he had a stroke right after
my God. This is like the saddest podcast in the world.
Sorry. They pick him up hitchhiking. They bring him back to the Iowa ghost field, and the second they put him on the ghost field, he apparently is playing by the rules of you can't step off it anymore. He has to retire to the cornfield or whatever goes on at night in the cornfield. But the young daughter, there's a scene where she gets accidentally knocked off the bleachers by the brother-in-law, gets knocked off the bleachers, lands and is unconscious, and then young Dr. Graham steps off the field and immediately ages up into his elderly doctor self. Goes over, does a bit of a Heimlich maneuver, and she choked on a hot dog. She's fine. I think she had a concussion, honestly, because like you don't go unconscious that quickly from choking on a hot dog. My assessment, 100% I'm not a doctor. Absolutely. Don't listen to my medical advice.
Armchair Amanda doctor is right.
He gets the hot dog out. She wakes up immediately, and they're like, hooray, he saved the day. But because he stepped off the field, he has to go into the cornfield. And that moment, that's the one that gets you in this movie.
I definitely cried.
They're all kind of like applauding him. Oh my God, that is so touching.
It still lands like even
and you're just like,
now.
I don't even know what this means. We didn't realize like you step off the field, you get like old, and then you go in the cornfield and you're gone. Like, whoa, it's like he died again. Wow, like that moment hit so hard. It gets all the feels.
This is what I think is great about the movie in a way, because it's of course, it's part of the plot. When he steps off the field, all of a sudden the brother-in-law can then see all the players, and everybody who's there becomes an immediate believer in what's happening. So it moves the plot along, but in some ways he's a super minor character, but it packs such incredible emotional punch. He's not just there. That whole thing you just described is not just there to move the plot along. It in and of itself is a really moving piece of this movie.
Yeah. I would say it's the most heartfelt piece.
Totally agree.
Of the whole movie.
Yeah, it moved me more than like the dad coming back, like the daddy issues part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By that point, it's just like, oh yeah, I bet they're gonna play catch. Oh, they play catch. Did Isaac call that they were gonna play catch? By the way,
he did not that Isaac specifically, but they.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that still does have a great ending. The ending still works.
I didn't write down the name of the actor who plays Ray's father in this, who has passed away, and Ray says they've been estranged, that he like stopped talking to him at age 17 and then he died soon after.
He was in The Cutting Edge.
He just lost his own father as they were filming this. He got called away from filming to go to the funeral, and then came back and filmed that scene where they're playing catch. And he was saying like, yeah, kind of mood that I showed up with to film that scene is absolutely because I was just at my own dad's funeral. And, like, you feel it. Like,
Totally feel it. Yeah.
Maybe not as poignant as Dr. Graham slipping away into the cornfield, but it definitely has this level of, like, father and son redemption going on.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of is the tone of the movie, is just like, ooh, these things I wish I'd said or wish I'd done. And
yeah.
There's a heaviness in this movie, and it's conveyed by the soundtrack that shows up at the beginning, and not so much by the poster, as we've discussed.
Yeah, and that's, it's a great, and then the movie ends with, like, they're playing catch, and the camera pans, and you could see basically a line of cars coming to see the baseball. So, the people will come part sort of comes true, you assume. The one funny note, while this extreme emotion is happening on screen, is my son was, like, eminently practical, was like, they're gonna have to build 1 million parking lots. Like, that's his mind went to, like, Isaac. Where are all these people gonna park, which is, for a 7-year-old, it's kind of funny. Yeah, and it's a good way to end.
That's very practical.
You're
raising some very practical kids.
I guess
here.
I am.
Yeah. When their future spouses are like, I'm gonna mow down our income,
they're gonna be like,
make a
no.
baseball field, Lily and Isaac are gonna be like, time out. Are you hearing voices in your head again?
Yeah, we do not hear rings, bells in this house. Like, no, like.
I need you to go get that CAT scan that you got a referral for.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about this after. Yeah, no, your kids are on a great path. I like this. Anything that is great? Things we haven't talked about yet that are awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, what's great is that the whole thing is kind of a mood board for American nostalgia. It still, at moments, gave me chills. I think it still worked. So that to me was still great.
I was just reading a book that was talking about how America loves a redemption story. And this is a series of redemption stories. Like, we are seeking people out.
Every character.
To give them their redemption story. So I think they nailed that. We just want to see people redeemed.
We do. And this is the second episode that we've done about middle-age redemption. First one being Hook, which I really went all in on the middle-age redemption part. And Amanda tanked that one. It's the one we most disagree with. But...
well, it was pushing the 3-hour mark. Have rules.
Yeah, but a good redemption story is great. I think an even better redemption story is that you see it from a different angle when you're older. And I think I did see it from a different angle this time. Even if I thought he was crazy because he had a mortgage.
Yeah. We like it in a movie. We do not like it in our spouses.
Hell's the fuck no.
We do not get to build a baseball field without talking about the finances.
Absolutely not.
How do we want to rate this?
So for rating for folks, just to remind folks, we're going to rate 1 to 10 for does it live up to us as adults, and then we'll do the same thing, does it live up to for our kids today. 1 being garbage, 10 being Princess Bride. We'll start for the adult rating. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to go a 7.5 on this, which I love my 0.5s.
Always with the 0.5s. 7.5 and not higher is my question to you.
So I'm looking at the movies I gave an 8 to. It's The Muppet Movie. It's Edward Scissorhands. Coming to America. Addams Family. Like, something about those surprised me a little bit more, made me elated to watch. This is like a thinker movie.
Okay.
7.5 is like a very good score for me. I suspect you're going like wicked high now that you've questioned my 7.5. What is your...
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to question. I was just genuinely curious, actually. I am going to go as high as a 9. I went really up there. And I reserve that high number, those high numbers, for movies where I could see it in a different light and it's either just as good or better and better in a different way. And I think this movie did that for me.
You've only given a 9 to Hook,
I know.
By the way.
I cheated and looked at my previous ratings.
You cheated and looked.
I looked. And I thought, I am okay with that. I'm going to give it a 9. I really felt like it not only lived up to me as an adult from my memory, but I found new things to really like about it, and that's my threshold for like a super high score. So that's a really high score, so they're at a 16.5 for just for our adult rating.
I think Jess is aligned with critics. This was nominated for a Best Picture.
Oh, was it? I didn't even know that.
yeah, this is a very esteemed movie.
So the next rating is what's our ranking for kids today? Same score, 1 being garbage, 10 being Princess Bride. So both my kids really enjoyed it. I know that I pretty much presented that they called the plot. They enjoyed it. So I'll just tell you my ranking. I'm going to give it a 7. And the reason I'm giving it a 7 is because I think it's very, very good for kids. They were totally suspended disbelief. I think the reason why it's not higher is that some of the references are old. They don't share the same nostalgia for this. And unlike, let's say, a Home Alone or like a Robin Hood, it doesn't have a repeat factor, I think, for them. But they enjoyed it.
Based on that, and then based on, you heard me try to remember my experience 30 plus years ago watching this. I think there were parts that went over my head.
Definitely.
I think there's parts that might have gone over your head on this viewing because the cornfield does have certain implications.
So wrong. You're so wrong.
I don't think I am. I'm so sorry.
I cannot wait for our viewers to tell us what they think. Our viewers, our listeners, whatever.
Please chime in on the meaning of walking into the cornfield if you've been invited by a shoeless Joe.
I'm so looking forward to being right on this. But anyway.
I think it's a lot darker than Jess thinks. I'm going to give this a 6.5 for kids. This is a movie that hits adults differently than it hits kids. All right, our total score at this point is 30. Ooh, that's pretty high.
Pretty high for us. So, listeners, the last question is, does it live up? It's just a yay or nay. Amanda and I need to agree to have the podcast officially deem it as living up, and we have had so many split decisions.
We have had split decisions on the past 2 episodes.
We have.
Totally opposite directions on both movies.
Yep. Amanda tanked Tremors, and I tanked Airplane, which I have a little bit of regret on just a couple weeks later.
Oh.
I know. I think I fucked up.
There will be atonement.
I fucked up. But, so... so it's just a yay or nay.
I think our audience knows which way you are going.
Yeah, they do.
Why don't you do that first, and we'll build up suspense.
Yeah, so clearly I've scored this way higher than you, and it's a resounding yes. And I think we've established this, that it has to be a resounding yes.
For me...
Uh-oh. What? Shut the fuck up.
Dragging it out. Look, I'm driving her crazy. Just making her react here. For... Field of Dreams, I'm going to say yes.
Yes! You made me nervous there, Amanda. I was like, oh my God, are you going to take this movie? Our listeners are just going to not follow us anymore.
Yeah. No, this movie, it still has the feels. Like, it sneaks in there and tugs at your heartstrings. Go find that curmudgeon in Boston and take him to Fenway Park.
Absolutely.
Whatever you gotta do. It's still charming, so... Yeah, it lives up.
All right. So this officially Field of Dreams. Congratulations. You live up. I highly encourage folks to watch it. Kids or no kids. You could tell Amanda how much she is wrong about the cornfields, meaning death. So please reach out to us on the socials at liveuppod or liveuppod@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. I'd especially love to hear from you if you think I am right in the cornfield debate. But anyway.
I don't think this is a debate.
Now I'm like, I feel like you're right. Shit. But anyway, reach out to us. Thanks for listening.